Hello, I'm just waiting for people to join. I'll give it a few seconds. So hello, and welcome to How to Be More Assertive for Introverted Women Leaders. I haven't done a live lunch and learn for a few months now, and I know people have been asking about them. So work commitments have meant that it's not been possible. So I've started them again. I won't be able to do them weekly like what I was doing before, but I will do them as frequently as I can. So now that we've got people online, I will begin. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carol Stewart. I'm the founder of the Bounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. I'm an executive career leadership coach specializing in introverted women who are senior leaders. And I coach women who are senior leaders or new to the boardroom to lead with confidence, influence, and impact. And if you're not connected, do follow me here on LinkedIn or join my High Achieving Introverted Women Facebook group. Hello, I can see, hi Nikki, hi Facebook group. And please let me know which part of the world that you're joining from today. I normally have women from all over the globe joining, and it's always good to know where people are joining from. So please let me know where you're joining from today. And so the topic today is being assertive, and it's something that I deal with regularly in coaching my clients or workshops or training that I do, where being assertive is challenging for some introverted women. And leaders who are passive or aggressive tend to not be seen as assertive. They tend to be seen as ineffective, not influential, and not impactful as leaders. Hello, Shay in Drayton, Ohio. Hello, Nikki in Nottinghamshire. Thank you for joining. And if you are passive as a leader, you might find that people walk all over you and they don't have that trust in your leadership abilities. And if you are aggressive, people may fear you, and it doesn't create a good environment for your teams or the people that work with you. Hi, Christina from Portugal. And if you are assertive, you will have greater influence and impact, and you'll feel a lot more confident with it as well. And so what I'm going to be covering is how to be more assertive, not passive or aggressive, how to speak firmly and authoritatively and when other people try to interrupt you, and this is particularly when you are in meetings, and how to show others that you mean business and that you are not a walkover. Hello, we're getting quite a few people joining on now. So hello, Portugal. Hello, Namibia. Great to have you here. Got 2 people from Portugal. So Portugal's in the lead today. So first of all, we're going to look at how to be more assertive and not passive or aggressive. And so when you think of being assertive, a great analogy that I like to use is from a psychologist called Dr. Randy Paterson. And he uses an analogy of the stage when he's talking about assertiveness. And he talks about people who are passive, they let everybody on the stage apart from themselves. And so people will get on and they don't try and get themselves onto the stage. And people who are aggressive are people who want the stage for themselves and they're pushing everybody off. But people who are assertive recognize that there is room for everybody on the stage and that everybody is welcome on the stage. And I think that's a good analogy to use when you're thinking about yourself. Are you the kind of person that lets everybody onto the stage? Or are you shoving everybody on? Or do you recognize that there is room for everybody to be on the stage? And so when you're thinking about how to be assertive and whether you are being assertive, it's good to think about what that looks like. and to recognize the difference between passive aggressive and assertiveness. And the stage description that I've just used is a good analogy to help you to think about your situation and think about whether you are being assertive. Oh, I've got a comment from Maria. She says that she read his books when she did her postgraduate. Yeah, I love his work. And so anybody watching, he's good. Do check him out. So think about how you are. And then if you find that you're not speaking up and speaking your mind as you would like to, that you're not asserting yourself as you would like to, what is the reason for that? So think about what is the reason why you are not assertive. And you will probably find that there are situations where you do assert yourself and situations where you don't. And oftentimes with the clients that I work with, when they come to coaching, they find that it's in situations where maybe there's more domineering personalities or more senior personalities or authoritative figures that they find it hard to speak up and assert themselves. So what are the situations where you're not as assertive as you would like to be? And then think of those situations where you can assert yourself, where you do speak up and speak your mind and you don't let people speak over you. And what are the differences between those different types of situations? Because if you can pinpoint that down, it'll be then easier to work out how you can address those situations where you lack assertiveness and how you can manage those environments, those situations, so that you do assert yourself. So does anybody want to share the situations where they maybe lack assertiveness or where they find themselves to be more assertive? Then if you want to share, then do please type in the comments. And so when you think about, so I've got a situation here. Thank you to the woman that snapped me out of my personal funk. One call was enough to realize what I was not appreciating in my capabilities. Thank you. You're welcome. And so understanding what is behind that, whether it's a fear of speaking up, whether it's something that you worry about, what is behind your reasons for not speaking up? Because, and I've talked about this on many of my live sessions about how we're very much led by our emotions, and the way that we think affects how we feel, and we act and behave according to how we're feeling. And if you're in a situation where you find that you're not asserting yourself, and you're anxious in those sorts of situations, or you worry about speaking up and speaking your mind, if you're feeling anxious about it, chances are you will not speak up, or if you do, you won't do it to the best of your ability. So a client of mine who wouldn't speak up in particular types of meetings when there were typical particular types of people in that meeting, people who were more extroverted, who were more domineering, more and particularly where they were more senior than her, she found that she didn't feel that she could speak up in those sorts of meetings. And so what we did was we looked at what was behind that fear, what was behind that worry. And so thinking about your situation, what is it that's behind your concerns or worries or fears about speaking up and asserting yourself? And if you were to speak up and assert yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And if that was to happen, what could you do about it? So let's read some more comments. So we've got a comment here. I'm assertive when I perceive an injustice against others, passive when it's just me who is not being treated the way I would treat others. Thank you for sharing that. And someone else has said that that is the same for them. So thinking about those situations, if you can change how you think and what you feel about them, that will be able to change. That will change how you feel, and it will change how you act and behave. And so we've got another one here, passive when in meetings with loud, fast talking, hand smacking on the table types. And I know the types that you mean. So if you look at the situation and think about how you can change your thoughts about it and what your beliefs are about those types of situations, that will change how you feel and that will change how you act and behave. So, give an example of where there were those loud, fast talking, hand smacking on the table types of people. It might be, when I've had clients who've had similar experiences, it's been because they know that they are more of the thinking and reflective type of person. Whereas if there is a lot of small talk, a lot of speaking on the spot, they felt that they've not been able to do that, so they've not felt confident about speaking up. And I'm going to touch on a bit about what you can do about that. And so think about the situations, look at the situations where you are assertive and those where you're not, and look at what is going on for you in the situations where you are more assertive and those where you're not. And then once you identify what that difference is, you will hopefully be able to pinpoint what it is about those situations. And then if you look at those situations and then just challenge your thoughts and what you believe about them, change them to something more helpful, rationalize your thoughts, and think about what is a more helpful perspective to have when you're in those situations. So once you've addressed your thoughts or your mindset about how you feel about those situations, I'm going to talk about how to speak firmly and authoritatively when others try to interrupt. And the first thing I want to touch on is tone of voice. I'll read a comment here from Maria first. Maria says, the culture of the company plays a role in how we act and behave because we do want to be appreciated and heard. And yes, that is very true. It does. So thinking about the tone of voice that you use. A bit often when you're feeling anxious and you're, as a result of feeling anxious, you're not feeling as confident to speak up, you might speak in very passive tones or very timid tones. So be specific when you talk, be clear, be concise, and be firm. And slow down your tone of voice, your pace, if you find yourself quickening, because what can happen when you're feeling anxious, you hurry up and say what you want to say because you just want to get it out and over and done with. But by doing that, that can help you to feel even more anxious because you will come across as not being assertive. So slow down your pace and have a clear, firm tone of voice. And sometimes it's worth just practicing this when you're not in those sorts of situations, and maybe even just video recording yourself on your phone, just putting on a clear, concise, firm voice, and be specific about what you're saying and be decisive as well. And if you find that people raise their voices over you, ask them firmly but calmly, what's the reason for you raising your voice at me? Because they may not even realize their behavior is being aggressive or that their behavior is being inappropriate. But by pointing it out to them like that, it can help them to see what it is that they're doing. Another thing with your voice is not using apologetic language. So overly apologizing. I had one client who would, when somebody sort of interrupted her and was speaking over her, would apologize without even realizing it. And by doing that, she would then back down and the other person would just take over the conversation. So be mindful of that apologetic language. Oh, I'm sorry, but excuse me, but and try not to use apologetic language. And think about, if you've got small children, when you're asking them to do something like tidy their room, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but can you tidy your room?" You'd be firm and you would be assertive. And so apply that in the boardroom when you're in meetings. That firm but clear, that specific kind of talk, and being concise as well. And when I say concise, when you're flustered, when you're anxious, it can be easy to then maybe go on a bit longer or oversay things, but just being clear, concise, comes across as being more assertive. Got another comment here. Experiences where individuals are fearful about their experience positions and use microaggression to undermine one's position. And yes, that can happen as well. And it's being mindful and aware that that is what's happening and that is what is going on with the individual as well. Another comment from Maria: it helps to separate your emotions from the facts at hand. Our emotions can influence our tone of voice, the speed of our talk, and how expressive we are. They can cripple our thinking, especially when it's a situation that is important to us. And yes, it can. Thank you for that, Maria. As I've said, we're very much led by our emotions, and the way that we think affects how we feel, and we act and behave according to how we're feeling. Well, many of us do anyway. And if we're not aware of that, then we will often let our emotions carry us and get away with us, which affects how confident and assertive that we can be. And so leading on from your using apologetic language, as I mentioned, if they raise their voice, ask them, what's the reason you're raising your voice at me? Or something else that will highlight their behavior, because they say, like I said, they may not be aware of their behavior. And if they interrupt, just continue speaking and raise your tone of voice slightly, not shouting, but just to speak, just continue speaking firmly and let them know that you haven't finished yet. And the next thing is about showing others that you mean business and that you're not a walkover. Think about body language. When you have an upright position and you maintain a good stance, you come across as more assertive. But when we're anxious, when we're stressed, when we're worrying, when we're fearful, we tend to shrink our bodies and shrink down. So to be aware of your body language and maintain that upright position, that firm stance as well. And make eye contact with people. And so catch their eyes, make eye contact, but don't glare into their eyes and make it so obvious, because then that can be very uncomfortable then. And be mindful of your facial expressions. So if you're worried and anxious, you may have like a sad face, a frown, or you might find that you are someone who, when you're anxious and worried, you put on that giggly voice. So be mindful of the facial expressions that you have as well. So you want to keep a straight, firm face, smile appropriately. So be mindful of the facial expressions, and having self-awareness that these things are going on for you will make it easy, and you develop that self-awareness through reflecting. So think about meetings, situations where you don't assert yourself, and reflect on what your body language is like and why it's like that, what your tone of voice is like and why it's like that. And so that when you do find yourself in those situations, that awareness will make it easier for you to see what is going on so that you can do something about it. So to wrap up, I've covered how to be more assertive, not passive or aggressive, and use the stage analogy as a way of you thinking about the situations where you're letting people talk over you, where you're not speaking up and saying what you want to say, or when you are being aggressive as well and not letting other people have an opportunity to speak up or have their say. And so identify what assertive looks like. And another thing that can help is when you're going into situations where you know you may struggle to be assertive, is do your preparation beforehand, and also visualize how you want things to be and visualize what that outcome is. And so then when you are speaking, have a clear picture of the outcome that you want and stay focused on that outcome, so that if somebody does throw you off kilter or interrupts you or makes you feel anxious, by staying focused to what your outcome is, acknowledge how you're feeling, but stay focused on your outcome, that will help you to deal with that situation more assertively and confidently. So Any questions before I wrap up? Anybody got any questions? Let's have a look. Anybody got any questions? Well, if nobody's got any questions, what are you going to do differently so that you are more assertive going forward? And please share in the comments and let me know what you're going to do differently. What action can you take to be more assertive going forward? And let me know in the comments. And if you want further support, further help or guidance from me, then send me a direct message and we can arrange to have a chat. So I've got a question here. Do men have the same issue? Yes. Some men do, yes. Yes, it's not just women, men do as well. Yes, so as I said, if you want to send me a private message, then please do so. If you're not in the Facebook group, High Achieving Introverted Women, then do join me there. And also, if you want to increase your confidence, influence, and impact, if you go to my website, aboundingsolutions.com, there is a free assessment that you can take on there that will give you some ideas about areas that you can focus on to develop. So we've got one action here to stop using apologetic language. That's brilliant. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Yes, stop using that sorry language. Yes, that is very common, that, oh, I'm sorry, but. So I've got a question here. Does this mean that women are insecure? Not necessarily. It can, it's not just women. This isn't just unique to women, and it's not unique to introverted women. Men can lack assertiveness as well. But often it's as a result of maybe some sort of insecurities about speaking up and saying what they want to say, or speaking their opinion, putting boundaries in place and not letting other people speak over them. And that it's often because of the belief that they may have about themselves or the sorts of people that they are with, because as we talked on earlier, some people find that certain situations they can be assertive, but then there are certain situations where there may be certain types of personalities where they find that they're not so assertive. So I've got another comment here. I've been told to be more assertive when it comes to me, as I should put myself first. But I get very passionate on injustice to others. We need to learn to be just as vocal. And yes, and that's often the case when it comes to other people. We know we can speak up, we can defend other people, but when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we're not as good as that. So thinking about those situations and what it is that you're speaking up about for other people, and that's often because you see an injustice, and so you're passionate because you don't want to see people be treated that way. So think of that, flip that, and apply that to yourself. Do we get more assertive with age and or with more experience? And I would say that depends. For some people, I've found that as I've got more mature, that I have become more assertive, but all that is as a result of me developing that belief in myself, and also with that belief, being my authentic self as well. And that has come through just working on myself. But some people, they don't, because some people don't do that work that they need to do on themselves to develop themselves in that way. So it depends on the individual as to whether they get more assertive. I often find that as women become more mature, they become more confident within themselves and with who they are. And in that case, they can become more assertive, but that's not always the case. Right, so thank you, everybody. Any more questions before I go? And also, do check out the Quietly Visible podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcast and Spotify and all major podcasting platforms. And I'm always looking for guests on my podcast. So if you've got an interesting story that you want to share about overcoming a particular challenge, obstacle as an introverted woman leader, or if you provide a service or expertise that can offer advice to introverted women leaders, then I'd love to have you as a guest. So do let me know in the comments as well. And thank you, everybody. And I will see you the next time. Bye. Oh, got a question before I go. K.Y. Smith, how can we be a guest? Send me a message and I will respond. So if you send me a message, letting me know that you want to be a guest on my podcast, and also letting me know what sort of topics that you'd like to be interviewed about. Oh, do I have a link? Yes, let me put a link to the podcast. Let me just get it. Right, there's a link to the podcast. So, K.Y. Smith, I will look out for your message and we will arrange a date. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Have a brilliant afternoon or morning, depending which part of the world you're joining from, or even evening, depending what part of the world you're joining from. I'll see you the next time. Bye. Oh, thank you for that.